Hey, we're pleased to be joined by Brad Logan, Inside the Rebels, 24/7 Sports, Bleav Ole Miss podcast host. Brad, thank you for joining us here.
Yes.
Live from Atlanta.
Yes, talking for the second time during the SEC Media Days because of our Twitter space that we were able to interact with last night. Look, it was Lane Kiffin had a lot to say. And, I had a chance to visit with some more beat writers that cover Ole Miss, and he said a lot more in regards to NIL than I expected him to.
Right.
He had a lot to say about the future of college athletics, and quite frankly, he said, I'm not making this up. He said it was legalized cheating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's right or wrong. That's what he said,
Absolutely.
and that's strong.
Yeah.
So where are we as a collective body of college football when a sitting head coach calls it collective cheating or calls it what am I trying to say? What did I say? It would calls it essentially cheating and legalized cheating, and then you've got that. And he basically said that the NIL was a mess because it was not legislated correctly. Mm-hmm. He used the word salary cap in regards to NIL about how much a program can put into its NIL budget.
Right.
And he basically called it, with salary cap, it's pay for play. It's
right.
Now, let me ask
I don't
you
know.
this,
I guess
though,
it just took me by surprise. He went so deep into it.
Let me ask you this, because I've even heard your colleague David Johnson over there,
Right.
24/7 Sports. I mean, he's laid it out. Ole Miss. And he specifically referenced Jackson Dart, a guy they added via the transfer portal, of course. Now, he's got a huge NIL deal at Ole Miss.
He does.
So I'm a little confused how Kiffin can say that, which I know it's not – it is the rule. You cannot entice people with NIL via the high school ranks.
Right.
But can you do it via the JUCO ranks, or are they just –
No, I don't think from the best of my ability or the best of my knowledge, you cannot induce players to come to campus and play for you via the NIL. The NIL is only a structure that is in place for sitting players.
Right.
So, obviously, there is something obviously in place for Jackson Dart. The question is when was that put into place? You have to make the assumption that was put into place following his signature.
Oh, I'm sure it was, but he's not played it down at Ole Miss.
Right.
So
it was following his sign. When he signed with Ole Miss, he immediately became a student athlete for
Right.
Ole Miss. So that NIL.
To me, that feels like you're kind of talking out both sides of your mouth, because I'm not saying they did anything illegal,
Right.
but I'm saying what is truly his NIL value if he's never played for the school? That certainly feels like again, I'm not saying they recruited
Right.
him, but I don't know.
Do you think this was a call to the boosters?
I think that's what every one of these coaches that call it out.
Like everyone else is paying more. Why aren't we?
I think so. But
Yeah.
also, I mean, it's written into the rule. It's illegal for the high school. You cannot recruit high school players with NIL. So that's a sticking point because we know it's going on.
Yeah.
It's certainly not going on at Ole Miss, but it's going on at other schools, and it's hurting teams like Ole Miss.
What about the back end, though? These collective agreements, that they're getting these
Lane
guys.
Lane said it.
I know. That's one of the things, one of the comments he brought up. He's like, doesn't mean they're going to play.
Yeah.
You know?
If there is a package in place, an NIL package for a student athlete on campus, and he happens to be really good at shooting basketball or catching the football, and let's just say that this person in whatever collective that they're in, and they give a substantial amount of money
Right.
for this particular NIL package for this player, who's to say that they don't go to the coach and say, hey, I put this amount of money into this collective.
Right.
Why is he not playing?
Yeah.
And I think, that's something, once again, we've got to tackle going down the road. I think Lane Kiffin, out of everything he said today, and like I said, he said a lot. He said a lot that people are going to be dissecting for a while. But the main thing that stuck out to me is he essentially said, this thing is broken.
Right.
And it is out of control.
Yeah.
And until a governing body, he didn't even say the NCAA. I don't even know that Greg Sankey said the NCAA today.
Right.
But until someone gets a hold of this, that it's a free-for-all. And I'm interested to see where it goes from here.
What are your thoughts? I mean, if you were, I don't know, take a step back and to govern the NIL, I mean, what would be the first thing? The salary cap's interesting. I've not heard that approach, but is that even possible?
I think so.
Okay.
You put a dollar amount on each program, each scholastic program that you have.
Right.
Olympic sports, everything. There is a cap on what you – so you can legislate it.
Right.
And it's documented what the NIL package is for your sitting student athletes, not inducements
Right.
for the freshmen, the JUCOs, the transfers.
And if that were to get in place, though, I mean,
Then we're back to the bagmen
you have
under
to
the
get
table.
Well, that and the NCAA.
Maybe you're hoping it's not as bad.
Well, and if we have a salary cap, what's to keep another school from a different conference, we're offering more up here.
Right.
I mean, this.
And that may be why Sankey is trying to stay away from that, because all of a sudden, if you put a salary cap of $150,000 or $200,000 per team, which
the
obviously
NCAA's
probably more,
back involved.
the NCAA's involved, and then you've got, okay, so we're the Big Ten. We're going to give each team $500,000. So we're going to up, and then the SEC says, no, they're not. We're going to go to $1 million per football team. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at some point, someone's got to step in, and I don't know that anybody has enough trust in the NCAA to make that decision or to legislate it.
Lane clearly came here with a message, and he's said it on every platform. And like you said, the clips, he does not like the NIL. And I'm wondering if that's more with his boosters. He's afraid to get, behind the 8 ball there, or is this something?
Well, let's put it on the table.
Yeah.
We heard, we know that the Texas A&M has a heck of a collective.
Correct.
And they've done a fantastic job organizing and making sure those NIL packages are in place. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that Texas A&M tried to induce players to come to play for them.
Right.
I'll allow that for speculation for our podcast listeners.
Right.
But let's just say they've done a great job with their collective. Then Jimbo comes out and goes absolutely ballistic because of what Nick Saban said.
Right.
So what's true here?
Yeah.
Is Jimbo telling the truth, or is he covering himself? Lane Kiffin has pretty much come out and said, we're going to recruit the transfer portal.
Right.
Yeah.
And the NIL structure that Ole Miss has in place with the Grow Collective is a pretty good collective.
Correct.
But it's nothing at what Texas A&M is doing in regards to finances, nor I don't think it probably is as good as what Alabama has. So it's definitely something that's going to have to be monitored, because it is a wild, wild west right now.
It really is.
Transferring to the team, though, this fall.
Yeah.
Help us, Brad, make sense of this Ole Miss team, because we see so many moving pieces, not only on the roster, but the coaching staff. All 3 coordinators have moved on. We got a potentially new starting quarterback. Well, of course, we're going to have a new starting quarterback, potentially from the transfer pool, as well as running backs, receivers. Yeah. I mean, all across the board, so many moving parts. How do you make any sense of what this team is going to be in the fall?
What you just said is 100% true and sounds like an absolute mess. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, you lose a quarterback that's one of the best quarterbacks in program history.
Right.
You lose every running back you've got. All the receivers gone. The only thing good on the offense, from what you're saying, is the offensive line pretty much returns with Nick Broeker, Jeremy James, and graduate transfer, Mason Brooks at right tackle. Offensive line is going to be very good.
Yeah.
Well, transfer portal. Here we go. You lose 85 to 90% of your production on offense. So you've got 2 quarterbacks, Jackson Dart and Luke Altmaier. I think will be very good come the season. Now, how good are they going to be? Well, we'll see early. The first 6 games are winnable.
Yeah.
The next 6 games are very dicey. So we'll see. So then you look at the receivers. That's a question mark. 3 to 4 graduate transfers are coming in.
Yeah.
By the way, running back room, former 5-star Zach Evans, former 4-star Ulysses Bentley. Kentrell Bullock is already on campus, a pretty good running back. So how can you sit here and say you lose 85 to 90% of your offense and they may be as good? That's crazy, and I'm not ready to say that, but a lot of people are, because of what they're getting in here. I've never seen a coach, maybe Jackie Sherrill, because what Lane Kiffin is doing is exactly what Sherrill did in the early 90s, except he used JUCO players versus transfer portal players. Bringing them in, hoping that you've got a group of collective players that can mesh together and come together and play well.
Yeah.
That's what he's hoping is going to happen. It happened last year. Will it happen again? Because nobody is playing and rolling the dice as much as Ole Miss is with the transfer portal. And here's the thing, Ole Miss is not apologizing for it. That's where they're going. And here's a stat for you. Suntarine Perkins, a 4-star running back out of South Mississippi, the only 2023 Mississippi kid that's recruited to Ole Miss. Now, it's July, and I'm not ready to cast aspersions about the recruiting in Mississippi. By the way, Nick Saban just offered, and they're thinking he's going to flip to Alabama. If that happens, then the Ole Miss will have 0 recruits from the state of Mississippi committed. Now, we can say all we want about the transfer portal. I'm here to say, as a lifelong Mississippian and someone that has watched both Ole Miss and Mississippi State, I don't think it's susceptible to win at Ole Miss if you do not recruit Mississippi, and Lane Kiffin is not.
Yeah, because you'd have to hit on the transfer portal
right,
every year, right?
Every year. And that, to me, that's dangerous, that you don't have a core base, not necessarily of Mississippi kids, but at least some form of a recruiting base of high school players, and they are just not putting a lot of emphasis. Now it's July, and we may replay this, and I'll probably get blasted. I've done it before. I've been blasted before. We may replay this in 3 or 4 months, and there may be 15 commits from Mississippi.
Not to mention relationship with coaches.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. When you turn over the coaching roster.
But 3 years down the road, there's going to be one, and if you've burnt that bridge just playing with the portal, then you don't have any shot getting that kid to come to Ole Miss.
I'll be honest with you. I don't know how much of a bridge is there to burn.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of gone over from last year. And so, unfortunately for Ole Miss, you've got great coaches that are recruiting hard in Mississippi. Derek Nix, there's a couple of receivers down in Jackson. Derek Nix is recruiting really hard.
Right.
So I think it really what my comment is really towards Lane Kiffin. It's not necessarily toward the assistant coaches because they're hitting the ground hard. I just think it's problematic that you only have one Mississippi kid recruited, and that one likely – yeah, I'll go ahead and say it. I think he's likely to flip to Alabama. It's July. I'm not ready to really just go nuts yet, but I think it's a problem.
Devil's advocate.
Yeah.
If there's rumors, there's always rumors every time there's a coaching hire that Lane Kiffin may go somewhere else. And I'm not saying that one is the other, but if you are working through the portal, do you think, I don't know, maybe building from the ground up with Mississippi State fans or Mississippi players that you've done in the past, it's not working this year. Do you think Kiffin's not planning for the future because that door is open, or do you think if you're a gambling man, how long do you think he's going to be at Ole Miss?
Last year, I would have said 100% that he was looking. I mean, you looked at all the jobs he wanted to get. He wanted Miami really bad.
Yeah.
There were some other jobs. I mean, I think he would have taken the Oregon job, but obviously they had other candidates in place. So now I don't know that it's as much of a concern as it was last year. But I do think there's a concern for Ole Miss fans that Lane has one foot out the door. I think he's shown more stability over this offseason than he has last offseason. And I think he's made the comment, and there were some pieces written about how this could be a spot that he stays for 3 or 4 years. I think if he stays 3 or 4 years, look, Ole Miss is bigger than Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would take a lot to mend those bridges of those high school coaches, depending on who the head coach would be, because you've got those assistant coaches pounding the ground and that sort of thing. I do think that there are a lot of players that they're in on. I think they could have a lot of commitments from Mississippi. They just haven't extended committable offers.
Right.
And do they do that over the next couple of weeks, couple of months? We'll wait and see. I just cannot stay away from the fact that Ole Miss has one commitment from Mississippi. Yeah. I've just never in my 45 years of living on this earth, and I guess I don't know how many years I've covered, college football. I've seen that, and it just blows me away.
Yeah.
Mississippi State does a great job recruiting Mississippi,
Absolutely.
as you guys know that, and Mike Leach and his staff have really hit the ground running. And I just think it's weird, if anything, that they only have one commit.
It's the first time. Every time you see a new Ole Miss coach, that's the first thing they talk about is recruiting the state of Mississippi.
Right.
I mean, they got the T-shirts that say "SIP made" and "Recruit come to the SIP." Well, you can't come to the SIP if you don't have an offer. So, I mean, what are we talking about here?
Hey, last thing I got for you, Brad. Replacing the defensive coordinator, of course, went to Texas A&M. How big of a blow? Because the casual fan, not the Ole Miss fan, but the casual fan probably didn't realize what a great job he did. And that defense really carried that team late in the year when Matt Corral kind of got banged up. It was the defense that really stepped up to lead the team to the Sugar Bowl.
Randall Joyner, the defensive line coach, has done a phenomenal job, Michael. I mean, he's really done well. And Chris Partridge is the new defensive coordinator. He was co-defensive coordinator with DJ Durkin, but don't let that say anything. DJ Durkin made every call on that defense. So it's going to be kind of a new day. I'm excited to see, and I've had this discussion a lot over the last couple of days. From what we understand inside the Manning Center, there's going to be more design blitz with Chris Partridge. I think the defensive line is going to be a lot better. We heard from Cedric Johnson earlier today, and he's someone that's going to step in the shoes of Sam Williams. Yeah. Sam Williams is a guy that really came on in the latter part of the year, had a lot of sacks, and led the team in sacks. I think more than anything is Partridge, along with Joyner, have really recruited the Northeast hard. They got Tywin Malone out of New Jersey. They also got the number one player out of New Jersey this year, Davison Igbinosun. They're expecting him to come in and play immediately as a freshman. So they've recruited really well. I think it's going to be something to monitor, and I'm excited to see that change over to the D.C. just to see how he makes those calls. I was interested during the spring game. David Johnson, I watched Partridge specifically just to see, kind of his mannerism, see how he was adapting to the new role. And from everything that we've learned, the players really enjoy that. Once again, defensive backs and defensive line, Ole Miss is going to be in pretty good shape. Linebackers, non-existent. I mean, Lane did not recruit well at linebacker. They missed on 3 or 4 players. Don't be surprised to see some Joe Lee Dunn type, line when you got secondary people kind of walking up and you've got defensive linemen standing up as
right.
There may not be a linebacker on the field at some point because you got Chance Campbell, who was all everything from Maryland, came over and had a big year. Mark Robinson played well for Ole Miss, one of the leading tacklers. Both those guys are gone, and there's really nobody to fill the void. So unless there's somebody through the portal that we don't know of, or maybe someone on campus now that had a good spring that we don't know, but that's definitely an area of concern for Ole Miss.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Brad. Plug all the work you're doing so the audience can find you.
Absolutely. At Brad Logan, COTE, or find me on the SEC Podcast Twitter space. You guys do a great job. And
I can't believe you made it down safely. You're spacing and driving.
Well, that's
we
the
were
thing.
concerned
I
for
told
you.
Cousin Sally. I mean, it wasn't that I was actually, going down the road watching. I mean, I just hit it and just threw it over to the side, and just listened because
You're just saying that for the highway patrol. I got you.
But I do a lot of work with WJTV down in Jackson, and then of course at Inside the Rebels, an affiliate of 247 Sports, and college football. I can't believe that we're sitting here at Media Day. I feel like just the other day we're walking out of the Superdome after Baylor just destroyed Ole Miss, and we're like, what happens now? And then here we are months later talking about the 2022 season. So incredible.
Absolutely.